Welcome back to Court TV Live. The breaking news today, Mathew Moore found not guilty on all charges. He was accused of murdering his wife, Emily Noble, and staging it like a suicide. The jury, after almost 3 hours of deliberation, decided the evidence was not there. Part of the reason for the not guilty, you could argue, was Diane Menashe, the woman sitting next to him. His defense attorney, she is speaking with our Matt Johnson now. Let's pick up that interview.
All right. Your reaction to the verdict?
What a great day. And I turned to Matt, and my first reaction was just that I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, you were patting him on the back, you know. Any...
I know it was awkward. Usually judges have a stand, you know, which is kind of easier to embrace, right? But I'm just so happy for him. And really in particular the last few days, I've seen just the stress accumulating in him, and it's been really hard to watch. And you know, it's totally out of his control, and I can't imagine to be in his shoes, not just for the last 15 months while he's been incarcerated, but really these last 2 weeks. So I'm just so happy for him, and I hope he can have a new chapter.
This case was unusual for you to try and for us to watch in a few ways. First off, there were jury questions, and you were delivering some statements in closing where you were kind of saying there is no motive here.
Yeah, and you know, the jurors, I just had an opportunity to speak to them, and what an incredible jury, right? And what a service they did. But one of the things we talked about was the jury questions. And I love them, actually. First trial I've ever done with jury questions. Certainly had cases where judges ask questions, but never jurors. And I felt like not only was it insightful into what they were thinking, but I also thought it really forced the jurors to stay engaged. And in a trial of this long or even longer, you know, the engagement of the jurors is so important for all of the attorneys. You want jurors to pay attention, you know, and to listen and to really care about what's going on. And the questions are such a help with that. So that was huge. As to motive, you know, it's the second big murder trial I've tried this year there's no motive. And while they don't have to prove motive, the absence of motive can certainly be used by jurors to in their consideration as to whether there's intent or purpose.
I noticed that in your cross, a lot of times it was longer than what the state's questioning was, and your rebuttal case, or you know, your case, was relatively short.
Well, I've always said, 24 years, is that putting on witnesses by definition, when a defense attorney does that, you're assuming some of the burden. And it certainly feels that way to me when I'm doing it. So I only put any evidence on if I think it's going to affirmatively move the needle forward. And I tell my co-counsel and my clients, if it's just a neutral, we're not doing it. And certainly we're not doing it if it might hurt us in any way. But I thought the two witnesses we put on moved the needle forward. And certainly Dr. John Bolte, I love the visual. And I also thought it was really part of the narrative that they had tunnel vision, and when they had engaged experts that said things and then they didn't want to hear those things, they just forgot about them. So he was important in those two ways, I felt.
I noticed that you brought that in a lot. Yes. A lot of your witnesses, or at least on your witness list, included people or experts that were going to be for the prosecution.
That's right. One of our other experts was from University of Tennessee that worked at the body farm, and she was another expert they had engaged early on about time of death. And she wrote a report, and then they never communicated with her again. And so I followed up when I was working the case, and we were going to call her, but I thought it was already clearly established in the state's case that no one could say when Emily got to the woods. So, and for me, that was huge with respect to time of death.
You got a little emotional during the Rule 29, if I'm getting that right. Talk to me about that.
You know, I think sometimes judges feel like, oh, Rule 29, we're just doing it, it's formulaic, you're just, you know, preserving the record. But I felt really passionately throughout this case, and while it was in trial, just so much, that how did we get here? Right? And if you have a Rule 29, you have the ability to argue a motion to dismiss. I felt like this is that case where that should be applied. So I got emotional because I did want to let the judge know, who doesn't know me, that this isn't me just arguing for the sake of making an appellate record. Like, and I think I said that in my closing. Like, I'm passionate, but I'm also passionate with a purpose. You know, I'm not emotional every day. And I hope that I mix it up with witnesses enough that sometimes I'm really, you know, I'm you know, kind of over the top, and sometimes I take it down. And, you know, I don't want to be litigating on the same note all the time. I think that's important. And so I really felt passionate about the Rule 29. I didn't want it to go to a jury.
We almost thought that it couldn't go to a jury at one point, especially the judge had given himself the night to deliberate on it. And then there was the next morning. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you what was going through your mind when we were witnessing what was happening that morning.
You know, that was incredibly unprofessional. And I have to tell you, since it was going through my mind, I thought if a defense attorney did that, the implications long-term for our career would be much different. And there are different roles in our justice system, not just with respect to race, but with respect to who has what role in the courtroom. And I just thought it was really disrespectful. And so I think the camera captured, I sat there, you know, for once with really out any expression or movement, because that moment just needed to happen on its own for everyone to see.
A lot of our viewers and our analysts really love to comment on how dynamic you are with demonstrative and also demonstrations. Is that something you always do?
It is, because I think visuals are so important, right? And you know, we know this as individuals, that everyone learns differently, right? Some people are auditory, some people are visual, and so you want to make sure that you're hitting all those marks with the jurors. I also think the best thing that could ever happen for me is if things I do or say resonate with the jury and they go into the deliberation room and they're like, remember when she did this, right? And so it stands out, and then it's like I'm in the jury room helping them get to where I want them to go.
Prosecutors in this case started to use some of your methods, your style, and they were referencing it. They even started to use some of your sayings. What is it? Garbage
in, garbage out. But they were sort of mocking me at the end, which is interesting. I hope it's a trend that continues for as long as I practice law. But jurors seem to really like me. And I think the reason is because I'm authentic. Right? I just say it like it is. I don't think I waste time. I think I'm efficient. I think I'm surgical. I would describe myself as that. I'm in and I'm out and I'm moving on. And so I think jurors like me. And certainly when I went back into the jury room right now, it seemed as if they liked me. So I think when prosecutors take that approach, it's probably not their best look.
What's next for Matt? I know that he's opted not to speak to the media.
Yeah. What's next for Matt? I hope the world is next for Matt, and really he never has been able to grieve the loss of his wife, right? Because of this whole situation, being under this cloud of suspicion and then ultimately being arrested. So I hope for Matt, he suffered so much trauma, and being incarcerated for 15 months, it's hard to wrap my brain around that. You know, someone that's innocent, incarcerated, I'm not sure I would have the strength. So I just hope he can breathe and really start to process what's happened and to find some happiness again.
And what's next for you? I know that you probably have not been getting much sleep.
More trials. I have more trials this year. It's the year of the trial. So I'm going to sleep tonight. Tomorrow's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm going to party like it's my birthday, and then I'm going to get back to work.
All right. Anything else you want to say?
No, you know, it's been, I will say this. It's you know, when you have a trial that's televised, and I learned this from Husel, is that the comments, right, not just from the commentators, but also from the public, is that they're so helpful. And I mean this. Every night I went home and I read every single comment, which was, you know, hundreds. The good, the bad, the all in between. But it's like understanding how the jury might be thinking. And I think for all of us that are doing this work, having the opportunity to have your cases filmed and seen and heard is such an incredible learning experience. So on top of this just being a total joyous moment for me, it's you know, I learn and I'll get better next time, and next time I'll be even better than that. So that's super exciting.
All right, Diane Menashe, ooh, what a performance she put on. And again, she referenced it. We watched her in the Husel trial, but she was sort of second chair here. This was all her, and what a job she did.